What's up, guys? I'm Andrew with T31 K9 Academy, and what we do is break down videos like you're about to see to help you and your unit to be more technically effective and efficient. In this video, we'll be discussing apprehension techniques with the use of a K9. I chose this video because this guy is a Marine. He's supposed to be the best of the best, but as you see in this video, even with him having that title as Marine, best of the best, as a K9 handler, you will see flaws in this. And if he is making these type of flaws, these types of mistakes, just imagine what else is being put out there that is flawing the system, that is causing officers and K9s to get killed on a regular. So with that said, let's jump into this. Now, I understand that it's California, it's the desert, and you have roads. But what I hate about this from the get-go is the fact that the vehicle is so far behind in that dust trail. It should be staggered at least to get the dust trail off, because you never know what's inside that vehicle. That police car pulling up right there could have been shot up before they even got to that situation right there. Now, another thing I hate, notice how they let him get out of the vehicle. He is controlling the situation at this moment. The officers are not in control. Whatever happens, happens because of the actions of this decoy. So the officers are having to react. As you watch my videos, you will come to understand that I have this phrase that's common knowledge. You act before you have to react. In this situation, they're going to end up having to react because they are allowing him to act. You see that? They allowed him to get farther away. Now watch. He's going to come back forward in an aggressive manner. That right there is your first sign that you should close that gap. You should bridge that gap and start advancing to make the apprehension. Because just as you see, it's a takeoff. Now they release the K9 and watch what the K9 does. He goes for the left side. He goes for the weak side of the guy, meaning that this guy has a strong side, which is where the weapon is. Notice how his arm is folded almost at the 45 on his right side, the side that's usually common to have a weapon on most of the population, because most of the population is right-handed. That shouldn't happen. All K9s should automatically be released and go at the bare minimum for the left arm, somewhere on the left arm. Now, as you come to watch and become a fan, you will understand that I do not like bicep bites. I think bicep bites are ineffective, but if it's necessary to get at least a bite, do it. In that situation, I would at least accept a bicep bite on it, because look what's happening. The decoy, which is the subject, the bad guy in this situation, is controlling the situation. He's doing whatever he wants to and needs to this dog. Now, because it's training, it's looked at as adding pressure to the dog. No, it's not adding. What is being looked at as pressure to anything, especially the dog. What it's doing is watering down the dog's understanding of what's being a threat, what's being presented as a threat, what should be recognized as a threat. For instance, look, the guy's arm is completely out, able to do any and everything that he needs it to do. If he wants to grab a weapon, such as a gun, a knife, if he has a bomb, God forbid, he can detonate it because he has access with his arm. Most things that are dangerous to people are carried on the right side of a person that's intending to cause that harm. So fight, fight, fight. And notice right there. Notice how the subject is on his back. This allows him to be able to lean up if he needs to grab the dog. It allows him to be able to lean up to get a weapon. It allows him to be able to roll over onto the dog if he needs to. It allows him to be able to do things he shouldn't be able to. It's because if you look closely, the dog is doing what I call bite and hold, which means it just takes the bite and it sits there and it waits till it's told to get off the bite. That should not be happening. The dog should bite and pull. The dog should not just bite and sit there. It should pull. It should be dragging that subject into a position where, with the orders of the officer, the suspect goes onto his stomach. That's not happening. Notice how the dog was called off before they have any control of the subject. In a way, that's a good thing because you want your dog to be able to come off without you having to yank it. But in this situation, it's bad because they have no control of the subject. Now, in most training, this would be considered a guard. They put him down in LA or down, and they having him watch for movements, any sign of threat from the guy. The distance should be closer to the guy because it gives him quicker response time. But what I do like about this, one thing I will give him to is the dog is facing the right arm, which means it's facing the strong arm. It's facing where the weapon's going to come from, if there's a weapon, more than likely. So that is one thing I will say that they are doing right, is that they have the dog facing the right direction for the quickest possible attack. The downside, even with that, the gap, that dog has to move. The decoy could be up and on his feet, moving back, moving into a different position to be able to shoot the officer, to be able to shoot the dog, do whatever he needs to. So that gap, that bridge needs to be closed. I don't understand why they keep doing that. It must be some part of the training. But anyway, I don't know, so I'm not going to speak on it. But what I can speak on is this right here. Notice how they have him. Once again, that dog should be closer to this guy. It should be closer to the subject, so it makes controlled situation for apprehension safer. Because in order for this officer to get close to this guy has to sit perfectly still and be compliant. What if he decides the very last minute to not be compliant? That then puts the officer in between the subject and the canine, and I can guarantee you the subject is going to be able to turn and do whatever he needs to this officer before that canine can close that gap. See? Right there. Look at the way the shadows line up. It's a perfect line. That means the officer is directly in between that canine and that subject. That should not happen. That officer should come in either from the opposite side at a 45, which means he comes off where he walked. He should have walked a straight line from where he was instead of crossing paths to get more to the guy's left. Because if you look, he takes the guy's left side. He should not be taking the guy's left side. He should be taking the guy's right side, because that's where the weapon is. Especially with the canine as far back as it is, there's no reason he should not have gone ahead and grabbed and controlled that side where more than likely a weapon would be. Now there's a trick to this video that I didn't point at because I wanted to see if y'all would notice it when they were driving up. But it's something from the very beginning that this dog should have picked up on before it even got out. Watch the back of the truck, if you can see it through the flag movement. That right there. That dog should have let those officers know that there was more than one subject in that vehicle. Because look, both of the officers, You might have to zoom in, but both of those officers have their back completely to that subject. Notice in the beginning of the video how the guy was drawing him towards the hood. That would have made an ambush. In any situation, that would have made an ambush. Because the officers, if you look where the 10 is, the officers would have been right off the shadow of that 10 where the guy's head is on that shadow. That's where the officers would have been. They would have been in between the two subjects. Perfect for an ambush. And the same thing. Notice how the guy has a clotter stick. People say that that's used to represent a noise, to represent something that adds pressure, to get it to want to bite and hold, which dogs should not be biting and holding. Dogs should be biting and fighting. And we will discuss that later on as y'all get more used to my videos and to what I'm presenting. But notice how that clutter stick is touching that dog. We place that clutter stick with an axe, and you will see what I'm talking about. Nothing should touch that dog. Everything that comes towards that dog should be understood as a threat presence, and that dog should handle accordingly. It should do. If this is a situation that the dog has to take something as a weak arm or the legs, it should do what is called a transfer bite, which means that it should take that to get the apprehension, to take the suspect down, to do a pull or push, depending on the situation. We'll discuss that later on. And once that happens, that canine should go straight towards that weapon. But in this situation, as you can see, we place that stick with an axe, and it proves my point. I don't care what you say, I don't care what you think, it doesn't add pressure. We place that stick with an axe, and you will see that all it does is keep the dog from understanding what a threat is. And notice, he lets the guy fall. He's letting the guy control the situation because he's not pulling. He should pull, especially when the guy's on his side like that. Pull him as hard as you can and get him on his stomach. Notice how the weapon hand is up. You can see the fingertips. That shouldn't be happening. In a real situation, that dog should hold that bite and fight that guy until those officers are completely in contact with that guy. One thing I will give to them is the fact that they have them kind of spread out. What needs to happen though, the head needs to face the left side. The feet need to be turned in so he can't stand, and palms need to be up. But the dog needs to be closer. And then when the guy makes contact with him to apprehend him. He's doing it better this time because he's not walking in between. But look, he's on the weak side. What keeps him besides walking between the dog and the guy, which at this point it won't make much of a difference, it's just stepping over the guy, or when he makes contact, just coming around the other side real quick. So what's keeping him from coming onto that right side to begin with? Questions, comments, or concerns, drop them in the comments below, and we will try to answer them